Alright, in today's video I want to talk about how to argue with a narcissist and actually win, because there is nothing that will make you feel more insane than trying to argue with a narcissist. They twist your words, they accuse you of things you didn't do, they blame you for their toxic behavior, and that causes you to either shut down or go silent because why keep talking when they're clearly not listening? Or you become enraged because they're lying and calling you names and you feel like you have to defend yourself and explain yourself, but you end up getting into a screaming match with them, only for them to turn around and say that you're the toxic one here. What? The point is, it just feels hopeless that anything is actually going to change, right? So today I want to talk about what can we do when we get stuck in that situation. Because for most of the people I talk to, they just want to be able to have a respectful disagreement with their partner or parent, right? You don't want to get into a screaming match. You don't want to call each other names. You simply want to have a productive conversation. One where both people can express their feelings or needs or desires or hurts with respectful vulnerability and feel heard and understood, meaning someone seeks to understand your point of view and validates that what you're feeling or needing is real. Is that too much to ask? No. That is the bare minimum of any actual relationship. That's what's called emotional safety. And when you don't have that, you won't actually have trust or intimacy or feel connected or close to that person either. All right, so all of those are great goals. So let's jump into how that works with a narcissistic person. I'm going to throw some characteristics at you. You let me know if this describes the person that you're thinking about, okay? Just need to put on my glasses here. All right, let's see. Forever the victim, won't take accountability for anything, takes vulnerability as an attack, shifts blame back to you any chance that they get, refuses to accept any constructive feedback and will likely punish you for giving it, uses your vulnerabilities against you, is not a safe place for you to talk about your feelings or needs, entitled, self-obsessed, only pays attention to you if it benefits them. Life is always unfair to them. Does that sound familiar so far? How about these? The rules don't apply to them. They're a walking double standard. You would never be able to get away with treating them the way they treat you. Gaslights you. I never said that. Your memory is terrible. Invalidates you. You're overreacting. You're too sensitive. You're really going to get upset about that? Demeans you, belittles you, calls you names, manipulates you, has no interest in understanding your perspective, treats you like a burden, blames you for why they don't have the life that they wanted, acts like they are trying to make you better by constantly criticizing you, justifies the way they disrespect you by saying you've hurt them worse in the past, lies to turn any situation in their favor, won't go to therapy with you because after all, you're the problem, right? And even if they're a covert narcissist, they still make everything about them. They still guilt trip you, they're still passive aggressive, and blame you for anything that's wrong in the situation, or they'll give you the silent treatment until you apologize. How'd I do? My guess is that you feel like it's always your job to care about the connection in this relationship. If you stopped putting in the effort, the entire thing would collapse, and then you would be blamed for it. So let me ask you, at what point have they shown you that they're interested or capable in having a respectful discussion where your perspective is honored instead of dismissed? How many times? Sure, maybe in the very beginning of the relationship when they were love bombing you. Maybe they treated you with respect occasionally so they could keep up the facade. But I'm asking you about consistently. How have they consistently shown up for you? Because if the answer is they aren't, then don't you think we shouldn't even be engaging in conflict with someone like that? I mean, what did we think would happen? You thought that this time, if you came up with the perfect words, that they would respond with love. You thought this time, they might actually listen to you with empathy instead of telling you you're crazy. It's not going to happen. If they are a narcissist, then you're outmatched. You're playing a rigged game. They don't mind using dirty tactics to skew the game in their favor. They actually enjoy getting you to the point of rage, because then they can tell people how you lost your cool and hold that against you as evidence as they try to shame you and belittle you. It's their goal to push on your triggers so you get overwhelmed. And they know you're not the type to leave a conflict, so you'll stay fighting hoping that it'll turn in a positive direction somehow, but it doesn't. And they will continue to use all their tricks to manipulate you into reacting. That's the saddest part. They're baiting us, and we're taking the bait. The only way to win an argument with a narcissist is not to play. That's the win. Detachment is the win. A narcissist feeds on supply, and they can get that supply through admiration or get it by being able to control and manipulate you. Either way, they're receiving the message that they are powerful. You truly want to win? Then show them that you're in control of how you respond and who you give your time and energy to. Is that hard? Of course it is. Nobody said this was easy. That doesn't change the fact that it's necessary. Stop thinking you can somehow change this situation by finding the right words or walking on eggshells or even taking accountability. Toxic people love to tell you all the mistakes that you make, but they aren't willing to take any accountability for theirs. And you're not going to bring them up because you know you'd be punished for starting a fight or ruining a good day. You see the problem? So you're left apologizing to keep the peace. You're left taking accountability. You're left trying to be the bigger person again. But the fact still remains, you don't ever get healing from their wounds against you. You don't ever get your turn to complain. They're certainly entitled to complain, but you're not. I don't care that you haven't been the perfect partner. None of us have. And yet you still don't deserve to be yelled at or belittled or called names or hit or made fun of or constantly criticized. Would you ever do any of that to them? Of course you wouldn't. And yet we still tolerate them doing it to us, because if someone tells you enough times you're worthless and you deserve to be abused, you start to believe them. That's the saddest part in all this. I could tell you what you're experiencing is textbook abuse, and your brain immediately thinks, no, it's not that bad. I mean, they've never hit me, or they've only hit me a couple times. I mean, it's not abuse. And yet, regardless of whether there was any actual physical abuse happening or not, emotional abuse can be just as damaging. Nobody deserves to be told that they're worthless. Nobody deserves to be called names or belittled. You never deserve that, and you know it's wrong, and you would never do that to someone else. But if you're honest, some of you, you're starting to stoop to their level. You're starting to say awful things back to them, but it's not because you're like them, because you're actually sorry when you do it. It's because you're desperate to be loved. You're desperate to reach them, and you think maybe if I yelled loud enough, they'll hear me, but they don't. And I'm sure other videos out there will teach you tactics on how to outsmart a narcissist in an argument. I'm sure there's plenty out there. But let's just think about why for a second. Why would we want to teach them a lesson? It's because they've hurt us so badly. But do you think in doing that, they're actually going to take any accountability? You think they're going to treat you any better? Of course not. You know as well as I do, they'll just continue to play the victim and go off on a tangent about how unfair this is. You don't argue with a narcissist and win. They would never let that happen. Their ego is way bigger than yours and way more fragile than yours. The only way to win is by not engaging. What we need to realize is if you find yourself in a conflict with a narcissist, we are in a lose-lose. If we engage, then we're signing up for chaos. They will dominate the conversation and accuse and lie and invalidate and demand that you listen to them without returning the favor. But if we disengage, you're going to get labeled as abandoning them. Suddenly, we don't care about them. We don't listen to them. And they'll say, I knew you never loved me. It's a lose-lose guilt trip. The narcissist needs their supply. If they can't get you triggered, they'll move on to other bait. They'll start a different argument. And this one is labeled, you never cared about me. You don't love me. And the evidence is, you won't stand there and let me belittle you. My advice is, if they aren't willing to establish a set of rules and standards for how you're going to treat each other during a conflict, as in no yelling or name-calling or belittling language, we have to take turns listening to each other's point of view, all that stuff. If they can't agree to those things, then they don't actually care about having a productive conflict with you. At that point, you need to take that guilt that you carry with you about being the one that's causing the disconnection in the relationship off your shoulders where it doesn't belong and give it back to them. Because they just told you they aren't interested in a respectful, healthy conflict. And if that's true, then why would we engage with someone who just told you their plan is to dismiss and invalidate you? The disconnection that you feel, it's not because of you, it's because of them. And they can blame you as much as they want to, but you did not cause it. You did everything you could to save it. And you feel crazy because you're doing everything you can to bend over backwards, but you don't feel them bending at all. And yet you're still being blamed for not bending far enough. You have to get to the point where you realize your self-worth matters. You realize you never deserve to be treated the way they're treating you, and you set healthy boundaries, which might be no contact. And I understand full well how difficult that is to end those relationships that you're attached to. Maybe this person is your parent, or maybe you have kids with this person. I don't know your situation. All I know is you can't continue to be treated like this. It's going to break you. You weren't meant to be demeaned or mocked or devalued. It hurts so bad. And if it continues, you're going to fall into a depression. You're going to live with this resentment. You're going to start becoming sick. It's a terrible way to live, and you know that. And I'm not saying you should torture the narcissist in your life, but you have to get to the point where you stop reacting to them baiting you into a fight. You have to get to the point where you stop letting them control you out of fear of losing them. And the thing that shatters the narcissist more than anything is your indifference. The thing that terrifies them more than anything isn't you yelling at them, it's you not caring enough to engage. then where does that leave them? All that ego, all that pride, all that superiority, and you're turning your back on them? That's when they absolutely lose their minds. That's why I say it's better not to engage, because I don't want their narcissistic rage being triggered and you being hurt by that. My point is this: if you have to engage in conflict with someone who's narcissistic, continue to remind them that you will only do that if they agree to certain guidelines and boundaries. They're going to call you difficult. You can just reiterate, these are my terms, you can agree or not, it's up to you. Yes, they're going to label you as too difficult. They'll say this is evidence that you're trying to control and manipulate them. You just have to stick to your morals here. You're not asking for too much. You're simply asking for the same respect and consideration that you're willing to give them. You're simply asking for communication that doesn't involve demeaning or belittling anyone. That's not being controlling. That's called protecting yourself. If they don't want to agree to those terms, that's their choice. But you should also have a choice as well, and that's the choice to not engage. Don't let them trick you. There's a reason everyone else in your life considers you a kind person, a good listener, a respectful friend. You seem to only have these issues with this one person, don't you? You're not being labeled controlling and manipulative and evil by anyone else in your life. Weird, huh? And before you say it, I'll say it for you. But Jimmy, they won't respect my boundaries. I understand that. But we have to remember, our boundaries are for us. A healthy boundary is, I will not tolerate someone calling me names during a conflict. If that happens, I will take a 30-minute break from that conflict and then come back to finish it once we're both calm. That's a boundary. It requires nothing from the other person. It's not me controlling them. They can stay there and call me every name in the book, but I won't be there to hear it because my boundary is to leave those conversations. We have to quit expecting other people to honor and respect our boundaries when we don't even respect and enforce our own boundaries. Now, if you're saying, okay, but they follow me into the other room screaming, or they start throwing things, or they won't even let me leave, I understand how difficult that situation is, but we need to understand that what you're describing is abuse. Wouldn't you agree? If you can't ask for a timeout when one or both of you is heated during an argument without them threatening you or continuing to escalate the fight, if you can't ask for a moment for things to calm down without them punishing you, that's abuse. And I understand how seemingly impossible all of this sounds. I mean, we engage in these conflicts because we hope. We hope that this person will eventually love us in the ways we deserve to be loved. We hope that we can find the right words, but it's not our words that are preventing them from listening. It's their ego and arrogance. So yes, if you find yourself in an argument with someone narcissistic, as hard as it is, you just need to find ways to de-escalate and disengage. Sometimes that means silence. Other times that just means giving one-word answers. But at the same time, I don't want them feeling like you're ignoring them because that's going to trigger rage. I just want to do whatever I can to prevent you from being hurt. That's why the best solution is to honestly assess, is this person a safe place for me? And if not, I need to do whatever I can to distance myself from them. And if they're family and you choose to continue that relationship with them, do whatever you can to ignore their bait and disengage from any conflicts. Once again, I'm so terribly sorry that you're in this spot. And if your ex was narcissistic and you're coming out of that relationship, I really think that this video will help you a lot. So thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to see you in the next one.